Hi everyone, welcome to the LTM Learning Series. This is Chapter 2. In this chapter, we will verify that the configured web application is accessible from the client machine to Web-Srv01 and Web-Srv02. The goal of this exercise is to confirm that the client can successfully reach the backend servers before we introduce load balancing. This ensures that the network connectivity, routing and service availability on the servers. Alright, let us get started. Chapter 2. Verify that the web application is accessible from the client machine to Web-Srv01 and Web-Srv02. This chapter is continuation of Chapter 1. If you haven't watched Chapter 1 yet, I highly recommend watching it Chapter 1 before watching this video. Alright, let us explore how traffic from the user reaches to the web application. User zone is deployed in the subnet of 10.10.200.0/24 with the gateway of 10.10.200.1. There is a Windows 10 workstation deployed in the user zone, named as user-ws01. The workstation IP address is 10.10.200.10. To test the application from this workstation, access must be allowed through both the perimeter and the data center firewall. We have configured the necessary security policies on both the firewalls to ensure the connectivity between the client machine and the web servers. In this policy, the source is client machine and the destinations are Web-Srv01 and Web-Srv02. Also, we have allowed the HTTP application port, which is TCP8181, and the HTTPS application port, which is TCP9191. Now, let us log into the workstation and test the web application access. Log into the workstation using RDP. Then open command prompt to check the IP and hostname. To check the IP, type the IP config and enter. The workstation IP address is 10.10.200.10. To check the workstation hostname, type hostname and enter. The workstation hostname is user-ws01. Now, let us test the HTTP web application from workstation to Web-Srv01. In order to test, open a browser, type the IP address along with the path. Oops, it is failed. Let us check the firewall logs. As per the log, traffic is allowed. The log confirms that the connection is permitted. Byte send. This indicates that the request was successfully sent from the client. However, there is no bytes received. This means there was no response returned and the TCP connection aged out. This confirms Web-Srv01 is not responding for the client request. Alright, let us troubleshoot why Web-Srv01 is not responding. To troubleshoot this, log into Web-Srv01 using RDP. Then, open a command prompt and verify that the application is listening on the correct TCP port to receive the user request by running the following commands. For the HTTP application, try netstat-an pipe symbol find str within double quote :8181 and enter. Great, the port is listening. For the HTTPS application, try netstat-an pipe symbol find str within double quote :9191 and enter. Great, the port is listening. Alright, since the port is listening, let's go ahead and test the web application is locally working on the server. Let us try HTTP application. It works. Also, let us try HTTPS application. It works. That means we have confirmed the application is up and running. Both the HTTP and HTTPS websites are working fine locally on the web server. Alright, next let us verify the user traffic reaching to the server. We will use the netstat command to check whether the user traffic is reaching to the server. To check this, use netstat-an pipe symbol find str the IP address of the client and enter. The output is empty. That indicates no traffic from the user machine is reaching to this server. In other words, the server is not seeing any incoming connections from the client IP. So the actual case is application works locally, not from the client machine. The network firewall has been verified and the traffic is allowed. The netstat-an output on the server indicates that no connection attempts from client are reaching to the server. In summary, even though the network firewall allows the traffic, it is not reaching to the web server. Then where the network packet goes and how to troubleshoot this? Great question. In this case, the traffic is most likely being blocked by the endpoint security on the web server. To confirm whether the traffic is reaching the server but being blocked by endpoint security, we need to capture the network packets. In order to capture the packets, we need a troubleshooting tool like Wireshark. We already have Wireshark installed on this server, so we can use it for the packet capture. Alright, let us use Wireshark to check that the user traffic is reaching to the web server or not. First, run the Wireshark on the server and apply a display filter using the client workstation IP address. Then initiate the web request from the client machine using client browser and monitor the Wireshark. Yes, the request is landing because we can see the TCP SYN packet, but there is no SYN-ACK response from the server. This indicates the request is coming from the client and Windows Endpoint Security is blocking the client's TCP connection. In our case, Windows Endpoint Security is Windows Defender Firewall. Let us create a Windows Firewall policy to allow it. In order to create, click Start on Windows and type Firewall. From the list, click Windows Defender Firewall to open it. In the left pane, click Advanced Settings. This will open Windows Defender Firewall with advanced security. In the left pane, right-click Inbound Rules and select New Rule. Choose Custom as the rule type. Then click Next. Here, select All Programs. Then click Next. Here, choose Protocol type as TCP and specify local port as 8181 for HTTP application and 9191 for HTTPS application using commas. Then click Next. Under the scope, set local address as the web server IP address, which is 10.10.121.51. Remote addresses any because many internet folks can access this website. Then click Next. Here, set the action as to choose Allow the connection. Then click Next. Here, apply the rules to all the profiles, domain, private, public. Then click Next. Finally, enter the rule name as users to Web-Srv01 allow and click Finish. You can see the rule is created and active now. This Windows Firewall rule now allows the external users to access the web application on TCP ports 8181 and 9191. Now let us go back to the user workstation and access the HTTP web application configured on Web-Srv01 using IP address and path. Yes, the HTTP web application works. Also, let us check the HTTPS web application configured on Web-Srv01 using the IP address and path. It shows the certificate warning because the web server is configured using self-signed certificate and we are accessing it using the IP address. So, click Accept on the certificate warning to continue. Yes, the HTTPS application also works. So, the Web-Srv01 Windows Defender Firewall was blocking the user connection previously. We allowed it creating the Windows Firewall policy. After that, we have tested the web application and it is working fine. We have followed the same steps and created Windows Firewall policy on Web-Srv02. Let us continue with the same test. Now let us go back to the user workstation and access the HTTP web application configured on Web-Srv02 using the IP address and path. Yes, the HTTP web application works. Also, let us access the HTTPS web application configured on Web-Srv02 using the IP address and path. It shows the certificate warning because the web server is configured using self-signed certificate and we are accessing it using the IP address. So, click accept on the certificate warning to continue. Yes, the HTTPS application also works. We successfully tested the learning portal website from the user machine to both Web-Srv01 and Web-Srv02. And it is working perfectly. This concludes our chapter 2. Please continue watching chapter 3, where we will discuss the need for a reverse proxy, focusing on load balancing and security. Thank you for watching.